I wake up with existential dread that AI is going to take over our business model and we're going to have 0 customers in a month. I worry. And then there's other days where I'm like, we've got this fantastic team and we are very profitable. And then I'm concerned about buying a pair of headphones because my headphones were not working. I brought it up to Jesse on a call. Man, my headphones aren't working and I don't know if I should pony up to buy new headphones. And he was just like, what are you even thinking about? Like, just put it on the company card. It's not even worth your thought of being stressed about that, which he's totally right. And yet I have this feeling that, I gotta be making the right decision all the time.
All right, so here's something I've been thinking about. When you're starting a business, there's no confusion about your purpose. It's to make money, create stability, and take care of your family. But then one day you realize you've done it. You've created that stability, you have that foundation, and suddenly the thing that's pushing you forward, it disappears. That's what we're figuring out here on the other side of Enough. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs who have hit their financial goals, but they're still searching for something more. We're talking about what business excellence really looks like on the other side. Let's get into it. For the listeners, you are on episode 1 with Justin Pichet. You and Justin aren't affiliated in any business models with each other, but I thought you guys would be a fun duo to get together. Tell the audience what you've been working on lately and a little bit of background of who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm Kevin, and I'm a tech guy. I primarily code stuff, but my main gig is building Pebble, which is a platform that helps land investors do more deals. So we're about 4 years into this thing, and yeah, it's been the majority of my time for that long. But the cool part now is that I'm not so much the day-to-day guy anymore. I'm not like coding every day. I've got a team of people that are doing that. And yeah, that's different. I've spent the past 15 years of my career coding every day, and now I'm not. So trying to figure out what that means for me.
So
how
you've lost the flow state.
Yeah.
Did you? What does it feel like losing that flow state?
In some ways, I'll be honest. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm spending my time these days on more important things for the business, whether that's partnerships, talking to people, talking to customers, figuring out what our next move is as a business. But I don't sit with my headphones on getting into the flow state for hours at a time. And that is challenging. You know, when you're a developer, it's very easy to stand up at the end of the day and say, I built this, and here it is. It didn't
feel productive
this morning, and now it exists. Yeah, you feel it's a very tangible, productive.
It's rewarding
workflow. Yeah, rewarding, all that. In business, as I'm sure you know, Drew, like you can get done with a day and be like, okay, I talked to 6 people and I wrote some stuff on a Trello card and I wrote down some things, but I don't know what I actually accomplished. And did any of the people that I talked to today have any impact on my future whatsoever? And that can be challenging. Now I'm learning to like track progress and all that, but it's tough. It's a different mindset.
So you've shifted from maker's schedule to manager's schedule. The classic, What's his name? Graham. What's his name? I'm going to look it up. Makers versus managers. It's a famous essay written by the guy who does Y Combinator, and he was the investor, Paul Graham. Yeah. Yeah. So he wrote an essay in 2009 that you can still find on the internet, and it talks about how a maker, So an author, computer programmer, anyone who needs to do very focused deep work, they need at least 4 hours of uninterrupted time to be
Yes.
get into flow state, right? Versus managers, which is I've been on that schedule now for a few years, and you need little 15-minute chunks here and there, and you can hop in and out of productivity, and it sounds the manager's schedule sounds better, like superior. But I'm telling you, and I think you would agree, Kevin, being in flow state, having the maker schedule is just much more fulfilling. So what's it like to
Yeah.
switch? You've switched. What does it feel like?
Yeah, I do miss it. I miss the maker mentality, and I feel myself getting pulled back into it. Like I will wake up and see a card sitting in our project board and just naturally crack open my code editor and start going to town. And then 4 hours later, I'll realize that the problem is much bigger than I thought it was. And what I thought, inevitably, I'll say, this is not time well spent for me. So I end up having to pass it on to somebody else or do something else. So I have to, but I still feel that pull to want to hop back into development. One thing that I've started doing is just personal time building things. I'm very much like a hands-on engineer type. So I build a lot of stuff for my house. We're doing this big renovation right now, so I spend a lot of time doing that. I'm building a wood
So that
shop
can scratch the itch.
basement. Yeah, it provides that tangible project-based accomplishment that I need without being too detrimental to the company.
So what does a typical day look like for
But
you
I'm still
now?
figuring that out. Yeah, so a lot of it is making sure the team has what they need to get work done. I spend a lot of time with my designer. So we spend a lot of time looking at wireframes and planning out what we're going to build and talking through different things there. I'm trying to talk to our customers as much as possible. I think that's a really big thing. My partner and I actually just today were talking about how we can get our use our product more from a first person perspective. Sometimes it's hard to get that perspective of somebody who's actually using it every day when you're not the one using it every day.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure how the best way to do that is, but we're working on that. But yeah,
I have
my day is
wondered,
spent a lot of planning, a lot of making sure my team is unblocked.
yeah. By the way, we do have a delay in the final, I'm sure you know how Riverside works. The final draft will not have the delay. Just you and I will hear a delay right now, but
Cool.
so I have always wondered, and this has not happened with Pebble, but with other software I use, I've wondered, are the
Mm-hmm.
are the creators even do they even use their own stuff? Because the bug I just found is like an easy bug to find. And the thing I like about you and Jesse, and I've known you guys for a few years now, we've hung out in Korea multiple times, and you guys are very passionate about creating the best software in the land niche. And I would say you have done that. You definitely have the biggest one. And you and Jesse, I feel like a lot of other software, it's somebody else's side project and they get it to where it's a B plus product and then they leave it alone and just let it coast. But you and Jesse are always looking to improve.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be the A plus product in the market. And just hearing you talk about how you want to be a user, even though I know you and Jesse aren't actively doing a ton of land deals like you did in the past, you guys want to be in there and just finding not only the bugs, but hey, how can we make stuff more efficient? How can we make it more intuitive? How can we make it more enjoyable,
Mm-hmm.
more pretty? And so I think that's really encouraging. Have you, to pivot a little bit, Kendall and I were on the phone, Kendall Lejeune and I'm paying him for some consulting on
Mm-hmm.
how to brand my podcast. And I would say for the first
Yeah.
10 episodes, the main focus was what does life look like after you have enough? And that for different people, that number will look differently. But I found that in those first 10 episodes, it was really, it's a mindset thing. It's not a specific number you hit. I wanted to interview people who reached the mindset where they felt like they had enough. And then we talk about what it's like to have enough and what purpose is, where do you get your purpose from after that? Because if you feel like you don't have enough, your purpose is simply to get enough. But with you, Kevin, I want to
Mm-hmm.
explore, and maybe you haven't gone through a season yet where you've had a lot of free time, but Kendall and I were talking about how everyone knows that having excess amounts of money does not bring happiness. Everyone knows that. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter who you ask, you
Yeah.
can even ask, I would say you could ask a homeless person, but maybe not. But I would say most Americans know deep down inside excess money doesn't bring happiness. But what Kendall and I talked about is most Americans do believe that having an excess amount of free time will bring happiness. And I believe that's false just based on personal experience where I've had massive amounts of free
Mm-hmm.
time, especially in the past year. And it didn't bring the happiness that these gurus promise. I saw something
Mm-hmm.
on the internet, I think it was land education, and it said something like, learn how to quit your 9 to 5 and build the schedule of your dreams. And you and I have that right
Mm-hmm.
now where we could do whatever we want all day long. I think, Kevin, you have more
Yeah.
accountability than me because you have a partner. But do you believe that having an abundance of free time brings happiness? Do you believe it's a myth? Do you think there's a sweet spot in there somewhere? What have you discovered on your journey?
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think there was a study about on the money side of things where they tracked like happiness correlation to annual income. And it was basically like you get an increase in happiness up until it's like 85K a year,
Yeah.
at least in America. And once you hit
Yeah.
85K a year, it just
There's no correlation.
plateaus. Yeah, there's no correlation beyond that. I think the same holds true for time. There's probably an amount of free time that does increase happiness, but I
Hmm.
almost wonder if an excess when you get over that certain threshold, that you almost get a decreasing amount of happiness because you're like you said, when you have nothing but time, it puts a ton of pressure on you to be doing something.
Right.
Whether that's something productive or some leisure activity or whatever it is, and like that in and of itself can be stressful. I think there's some balance in the middle there of having some amount of I need to get these things done, therefore I have to do these certain amount of things, but then I can also not prioritize things that I want to do myself.
So it's almost like the happiness curve is shaped like an arch where
Mm-hmm.
it it increases up until a certain point and then it starts decreasing again. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I missed the last part that you said. What was that?
It's almost like what I'm picturing what you're saying is the happiness curve, and I would agree with this. It's like an arch where if you have
Yeah.
basically no free time and you feel like all you do is work and then you go to sleep and you repeat the process, happiness is low, and then it increases with more and more free time, but then it hits a peak and then actually goes down from there, right? So if you want to
Yeah.
meet like one of the most depressed men in the world, just find a veteran on 100% disability. There's a lot of veterans on 80, 90, 100% disability where they actually don't need to work.
Yeah.
They're making like 3-4 grand a month from the government, and
Uh-huh.
like they don't have to work. And unless they pick up some project in the garage or something, a lot of them are playing video games all day and just they're not happy people. Is that kind of what I hear you're saying? Is there
Yeah.
so there is a sweet
Same with
spot?
like retirees.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you look at recent retirees, a lot of them go straight into depression because they just don't
Right.
have anything of fulfillment to do. I was just
Right.
watching this thing about firefighters. It was these old guys talking about firefighting in New York and how it's changed in the past few decades. And like the end of it, they were talking about what it was like to retire, and both of them said like they were forced to retire at 65, and they would both give anything to have a day back on the job, like back in the
Yeah.
firehouse. And they both said that that was their happiest time, was just being a part of that.
I wonder it's because they had all the right ingredients. They had camaraderie, they had purpose, they probably had some
Mm-hmm.
autonomy. They were making enough to provide for their
Yeah.
family.
Skill. Yeah.
So is life just
Yeah.
this life is just this like science this like one page report where we like try to check all the blocks? Do you think it's that easy? Where it's okay, I need to make sure I
I
have
wish it
the
was,
perfect
but
amount of time freedom. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't think there's any one formula, and I think that changes as you go through different seasons, or at least it does for me. There was a time where all I wanted to do was wake up and code every day, and if I could just do that, I'd be happy. And then
Yeah.
that stopped being fulfilling at some point. And then I building a business to profitability was like the thing that
The
I
Holy Grail.
wanted to do
Yeah.
more than anything else. Yeah, and then I did that, and now I'm trying to do different things. So you go through these different loops of change, and your priorities change. And I'm honestly like in that space right now where I'm still looking for what that next thing is for me. And I have this business that's working, but I don't know exactly what the next thing that I should be focusing my energy on is. I'm still looking for that.
Is it safe to say that Pebble has stopped being challenging and you've gotten bored?
I wouldn't say that. Pebble is challenging. We have a team of 10 people now, and every day there are challenges, and we have things that we're trying to do and build, and it's challenging for sure. I don't want to minimize that, but it's very different than the challenges it used to be. And I'm still trying to figure out where my biggest impact is. It's interesting. I was talking yesterday at church to a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist,
Mm-hmm.
and went to one of the top schools in the country. Went through residency at one of the top hospitals. Works now at a big hospital here in Milwaukee, and is probably making a ton of money. And we were talking, and he was like, "Oh, you run a business," and he was like, "Man, like if only I could do that." He
Yeah.
was just like really complaining about, I have to go into work every day, and I have to be on these surgeries. And to hear this guy who, if you this is someone making more than 90% of people out there, and to him like it wasn't enough. And I was like, and his comment to me was, you've made it. Like you've got a business and like you can make your own schedule and you don't have to answer to a boss telling you when to come into surgery. And I was like I didn't want to tell him, but when you're running a business, there's a lot of other crap you got
Right.
to deal with. Yes, you might not have a job, you might not have a boss who's telling you to come into work every day, but you
There's a
have to now make
burden.
those decisions. Yeah, there's a burden of I'm doing things that I never thought I would have to deal with, whether it's accounting and lawyers getting involved in corporate structures and people trying to sue us. There's just a countless number of things that are challenging about running a business. And I
Yeah.
probably would have sat in his seat a few years ago and thought, boy, if I could just be sitting where I am today, I'd have made it. But I
Yeah.
didn't know all of the pain that comes along with that as well. So I don't think there's
Well,
a
and there's
one perfect formula.
yeah. There's also uncertainty that you deal with that he doesn't, unless he's concerned about getting laid off. He
Yeah.
knows that he's going to make the same amount of money. I guess being a doctor is, especially in surgery, is tough. That's high pressure. But there's plenty of moments
Mm-hmm.
in my own journey, my own entrepreneurial journey, where I wish I was. A lot of my peers here are Google, Facebook employees, doctors,
Mm-hmm.
lawyers, very high income, but they do have to go into work. And there's days, dark days, where I'll trade my autonomy for certainty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think, yeah, because you and I have both experienced working for someone else and then also working for ourselves. And I would say overall it's better. But yeah, there's some pretty dark. It's like that when they show the emotions of someone when they get married, you
Mm-hmm.
have higher highs, but you also have lower lows. And that's what I
It's like
found with
kids.
entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Kids bring high highs and lower lows.
So same with
Yeah.
entrepreneurship where entrepreneurs do have higher upside and then also probably much higher emotional highs. But man, there's
Mm-hmm.
some dark days. Someone threatens to sue you, something goes wrong, you're over leveraged with
Mm-hmm.
expensive debt in a deal that's not performing, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are some dark things to go through. And most people, like Renee is great, my wife, but a lot of times she can't relate to a lot of the burden I feel. I don't know if you have similar thing in your marriage, but sometimes you can feel alone, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm so blessed to have Jesse, my partner, because being
You can walk
fifty-fifty
through it
partners,
together.
we can, yeah, like we can recognize when the other needs some time or a realignment. But yeah, it is challenging for sure.
Now that you and Jesse have been working on the same business for 4 years now, have you noticed? I feel like a lot of the time, like I was in a partnership with, and actually I'm still in partnership with him. There's a guy that I do deals with in Oklahoma. Okay. Great
Mm-hmm.
guy. I know his family. I even stayed in their house. Like he is a friend and a great business partner, zero complaints. But there was a season when we first started out where I felt
Mm-hmm.
it was probably the first 3 months, I felt like I was pulling way more weight than he was. And I almost
Mm-hmm.
bailed. I remember feeling frustrated. But then ironically, then it reversed where then I went through a season where he was pulling much more weight than I was. And I learned that partnerships go through seasons where one person's doing 75% and the other person's doing
Mm-hmm.
25. And you got to give it some time. Maybe that lasts for 6 months, but then you're going to go through a season where your partner's doing well and you're not. And it's the opposite. Have you noticed that with you and Jesse?
For sure. Absolutely, yeah. There are definitely swings where either we have family things going on or we've got just different cylinders that we're firing on. And Yeah, it's nice to be able to swing back and forth on that.
So, what is it like? What was it like when that first happened? When you start out, usually both of you are super motivated. Each
Hmm.
person is doing 50% of the work, but who went through a dip season first, and then was the other person all concerned that it would continue, or how do you have patience to wait for the person to get out of their funk?
I know from my perspective, I went through some really challenging stuff with health issues with my wife, and then my dad got sick, and we had to move from Korea back to the US, and it was very. I went through like almost a couple years where it was just like really tough. But yeah, so Jesse has definitely picked up the slack in a lot of ways. But he also knows that I'm like we have enough trust in each other that I'm going to pull my weight on
Right.
however that has to happen. But yeah, the on the he's also gone through things where he's been able to take some time off, and yeah, it's I like to say that I got very lucky with Jesse. I've worked in partnerships before that have not panned out this well, and you do get in those situations where either personal issues or whatever, it just doesn't work out. I feel very fortunate that Jesse and I have not had that happen.
Yeah. I did interrupt you at the beginning. You're talking through a little bit about your history and kind of what's next. Did you want to finish that? Any thought on that?
I'm trying to build this wood shop so that I can build a guitar stand. A guitar stand I could just buy on Amazon for $100, but I gotta build a wood shop so I can build one myself. It'll probably be a $5,000 guitar stand when it's all said and done. But
But a lot of fulfillment.
yeah, yes, it'll be $5,000 worth of fulfillment when it's finished.
Okay, so you've shifted. You're no longer in flow state for 9 to 5 type activities. So you're finding flow state activities elsewhere through house projects and stuff. Now that you have the manager's schedule, like what is it? Are you doing your own projects throughout the day, or do you pack your days with meetings and then you work on projects after? Are you doing those on the weekend? What does that look like?
I definitely have meetings with the team. Those are usually mornings where I'm talking with developers and designers, making sure that they've got what they need. I do some code review, so looking at code, reviewing features, like testing them out and verifying everything looks okay. And then my usually my afternoons are when I'm doing more project stuff,
Like
and then
podcasts?
some some of that I meet with a lot of customers, so I'll typically have 3 or 4 meetings per week just talking to customers, whether that's new customers or old customers. I try to just get 3 or 4 calls in a week talking to people, seeing what they need, seeing if they want to test something. Yeah, and then I fit in project work in between there, whether that's figuring out doing research on what next feature we're going to do or what data's out there that we can incorporate or what market we might want to go after. But it's a bit in flux right now. I've got this business coach that I started with last month, and we're really trying to hone in on what I'm spending my time on and how I'm scheduling that time. So it's because I have felt disjointed. I'll I have felt like
You've lost
I don't have my
momentum.
time really nailed. Yeah, and I'll get done with a meeting and I'll look at my schedule and I've got 2 hours, and then I don't know what to do. I've done the code review. I've answered all the questions in Slack, and now I'm like,
How
what do
much
I
of
do?
that sounds like some guilt, right? There's some guilt there. And I have that guilt myself just because, all these, what's that guy who like runs 200 miles at a time, the Navy SEAL guy?
Oh, Goggins, David Goggins.
Yeah, like the David Goggins type mindset is you should always be working, always running at 100 miles an
Yeah,
hour. And then you get this
yeah.
weird 2 hour gap and you're like, okay, I got to be productive. But sometimes you don't feel like being productive. Other times, like you just said, you don't really know what to do. And so
Hmm.
I have that guilt, but I wonder if you have it even more because you have this business partner that even though he's not tracking what you do every day, is there this thing deep down inside? If I take the next 2 hours off, that I'm cheating Jesse.
Oh, for sure. Yes, I definitely feel guilt about that. Even to the point where I'll find myself just sitting at my computer,
Just waiting for something to come in.
just, yeah, or just finding, like, poking around through GitHub or whatever, just like looking for something to focus on. And yeah, and I think that pressure is Jesse's probably doing something important right now. I should be doing something important too. And I think he actually told me this one time, like to just go when that happens, just get the dog and go for a walk. And
Yeah.
I that's probably the better thing, especially being a product person where I'm responsible for coming up with the ideas of what we're going to build. Forcing some of that downtime into my day is important because I
Right.
need the time to
Think.
just think, and that's not natural for me. My natural state is to be doing something. But if I'm doing something, then I'm usually not thinking.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
in the army, as an army officer, you're not
Mhm.
supposed to be digging your own foxhole. You're supposed to be on the top of the
Mm.
hill with the map, looking out, figuring out where the enemy could attack from, where you're going to attack, where you're going to put the machine gun nests. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like that with you in your position where you need a certain percentage of your time with your head above the clouds so you can see off in the
Mhm.
far distance. And it looks, especially like from your spouse's point of view, it looks like you're just dinking around, just not doing anything productive. But
Yeah.
that time is necessary for those ideas to come, those
Mhm.
solutions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Seth and I,
it's something I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, for me, that is when I'm working out, like lifting weights with music and stuff. That's when I hit flow state with those ideas. It's usually my optimal time. But pivoting topics a little bit, Seth and I talked about how, and this might not be you, but we talked about how most people on their deathbed, the belief is that most people feel like they worked too much and they didn't spend enough time with their family. That's a typical classic
Mhm.
deathbed kind of thing. But him and I both
Mhm.
talked about how we're both spending actually a lot of time with our families because both of us work from home and we feel like we spend a ton of time with our families almost at the expense of having the opposite fear where our fears that we'll be on our deathbed and feel like we didn't work on the projects that like we didn't chase big enough projects, big enough business ideas. Do you which side of the spectrum do you feel like you would be more on?
I think I'm in the same boat. It's such a privilege to have the time, but yeah, like I 3 days a week I'm walking to school to my kids' school at 3:20 to pick them up, and we
Right.
play in the playground for an hour, and then we come home and we play in the backyard, and I do spend and I walk them to school most mornings. So I do have a lot of time with them, which is great. I really love that. But yeah, I also feel this pull that if I could have more time coming up with the next big project, maybe that would be more fulfilling or more rewarding or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't have a good answer.
It's a tough one. I think about it a lot where we're in a season right now. We're technically homeless because the LA fires happened and then we basically left the country for a few months, gave all our furniture to a fire victim family. Now we're back in the US. It's mid-May as we're recording this, and we're still looking for a place.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like, because living in Southern California is expensive, and we're looking at houses to rent anywhere from 4,000 a month up to 8,000 a month. And half of
Uh-huh.
me like scares the living daylights out of me to rent for that much. But then the other half of me like
Yeah.
just knows that's actually a very small number compared to like the gross profit of my business. And then there's another side
Mm-hmm.
of me. It's like all these parts of my brains that are competing with each other. There's another part of my brain that's, hey, who cares about your burn rate? Because you're about to hit grind mode for the next year and you're going to make so much effing money, it doesn't even matter. Do you have this tension in your brain where you have scarcity mindset in one corner, you have abundance mindset in another corner, you have like boredom in another corner, and all these things, and then you have and then maybe in the fourth corner, you've got this massive drive to build something great, and they're all just pulling at each other. And depending on the day,
Yeah.
one of them, it's like they're pulling a rope with four directions. And depending on the day, like one of them is winning. Do you feel like that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I wake up with existential dread that AI is going to take over our
Right.
business model and we're going to have zero customers in a month. I worry. And then there's other days where I'm like, we've got this fantastic team and we are very profitable. And then I was concerned about buying a pair of headphones because my headphones were not working. I brought it up to Jesse on a call. Man, my like headphones aren't working and I don't know if I should pony up to buy new headphones. And he was just like,
Are you a
dude,
crazy
like don't
person?
even
Yeah.
what are you even thinking about? Like just put it on the company card. Like it doesn't even it's not even worth the
Right.
thought of being stressed about that. But yeah, which he's totally right. And yet I have this feeling that, oh, I gotta be making the right decision all the time.
There's the implication
Yeah, so
that it's almost like underneath the surface,
good.
the feeling is, well, okay, if I justify this expensive headset, then that means I'm like participating in lifestyle creep. And before you know it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be in my 50s. I'll have made a ton of money. I'll have spent a ton of money. And I'm going to be one of those broke 55-year-olds that spent everything he made. I think that's the fear you're feeling. And that's the fear I
Yeah.
feel all the time as well is sure, I'm making good money now, but how long will it last? And
Uh,
lifestyle creep is scary.
yeah.
But then you can just
Yeah,
endlessly
totally. Because I
justify.
have,
And I talk
yeah,
about this
I
where,
watched family.
go ahead. We have a few second delay.
We keep stomping on each other. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel the same thing because I've seen close people to me who are 65 and they've got nothing. And I can't even imagine the amount of stress that would be. Although they don't seem to be worried about it, so I guess maybe I should think that I would be stressed. But yeah, like I worry. Oh gosh, I've got this good thing going, but maybe it'll all go away, and
Right.
I'm gonna be that person wondering what I'm gonna do in retirement. But I know that's not gonna be the case because I've always been good at saving and investing and all this stuff, and I know that I've got a good track record of being able to provide, but there's still that, yeah, there's that concern
That
of
fear.
lifestyle creep,
Yeah.
that fear that something is going to pop up and I'm going to have to sink a ton of money into something and that's going to cause a big problem. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I worry about, but trying not
Do
to.
you play this game with yourself where, let's say, actually, I haven't visited you, Kevin, so I don't know what kind of house you live in. I don't know what kind of cars you drive, but I play this game where, you can just constantly justify spending more money on something. So, like with a car, it's okay, if I buy this new car, then people will think I'm more successful, which will bring in more deals. And my call quality while I'm doing phone calls while I drive will be better, which will help me be more productive. I'll enjoy the car more, which means I'm going to be more refreshed when I arrive at my destination. I'll drive on the highway. Like instead of flying to Minneapolis from Milwaukee, I'll drive because I enjoy the car. So I'll save money there. And you could do that with your house. You could say, okay, we buy a bigger house. I'll have a whole room for my
Mhm.
office. I'll be more productive. And you can constantly come up with these reasons why it's worth it to spend more. And then the other half of your brain is, no, you're going to wake up one day, your burn rate's 40 grand a month, and then your income's going to stop coming in and you're going to have this huge crash, this personal crash, like the bigger the tree, the harder it falls kind of thing. Do you find yourself in that pattern?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure.
what's the answer?
I try very hard to not have the lifestyle creep. Actually, I think living in if you go just live in Korea, that's probably the one way because you're forced to live in
Oh
a
yeah.
800 square foot apartment, which just does
Yep.
wonders on ensuring you don't buy stuff. Yeah, it's funny because I moved here and we bought a small house by American standards, but then immediately filled it up with stuff. And now I'm
Yep.
thinking, I get that feeling like, okay, now the kids are getting older. They're gonna want their own rooms. They're gonna want. I need to have like more space for them, and so maybe I should upgrade. But then the solution for me is to just know that I have all of these friends in Korea who have 2 and 3 kids who are making it work in a 800,000 square foot apartment and they're okay. They're not suffering deeply. And
800 square feet. And they're living on 50K a
yeah,
year.
yeah, they're surviving.
Right.
And yeah, I'm trying really hard to not upgrade this house. I really want to just optimize. And I think that's the key is just optimize what you have. I think at least in like our house, like we're moving things around. We're like I'm going to finish an attic space and turn it into an office. So we have the options to make this place work for us. But
But
you
how do
have
you
to
stop?
you almost have to force yourself into
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
How do you do that? Because you could constantly, I don't know if you visited Josiah Ronco in Florida, but he's got this perfect backyard. He planted bamboo along his property lines. And so he's got a ton of privacy. He's got sauna, cold plunge. He's got a screened in gazebo. He's got his office back there in a separate shed. And he's got a fire pit. And he hosts a lot of people. And you can constantly just play this game where you're like, if I had a better backyard, I would be able to host more people and it would bring in more business, bring in more capital.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we had a basement theater, then we could host like more social events down there. And I need a wet bar also, so I could like make drinks for these people. And
Yeah.
it's just this like nonstop thing. And then you're like, but our minivan is old. So what if people judge us for that? And
Uh-huh.
maybe that shuts down potential opportunities for growth just because people think that I'm lying about Pebble's success. And you could just play this nonstop game.
Yeah.
And so for
And
me,
it never ends. And this is why you see
yeah,
yeah, people in the Hamptons with mega yachts and giant houses and all the stuff. They're all just running the same game, just at a different goalpost.
Yeah. I wonder though if there is a magic percentage of income or something where you can upgrade your lifestyle as long as it's like if you're living, let's say you're living on 30% of your income. Okay. Make a million a year, you're living on 300K. And let's say you start making 10 million a year and then you increase your lifestyle to 3 million a year. Okay. I don't think anyone would say that's bad. So is there like a cutoff?
Right.
Is there a cutoff where you could pretty much spend as much as you want as long as it's less than a certain percentage of income? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I I have been upgrading our lifestyle for the past year. Like I mentioned, we're doing this big renovation that comes with a bunch of you do the renovation and then now you got to buy the furniture to go in the renovated space. We've got a new area in our yard, so I'm like, okay, now I got to buy furniture and got to add this all this stuff.
Right.
So I'm certainly guilty of it. But I come back to what I've realized also is that every time I buy something or I upgrade something, it increases the surface area of stuff I have to think about. You get another bathroom in your house, and it's now I have to there are more things that can go wrong there,
Yeah.
and there are more things more toilet paper rolls I gotta stock.
So you're talking about like the now it's taking up more
Yeah,
real estate
like
in your
I
brain.
almost yeah. Yeah, and I wonder like those people who have like we had this good family friend of ours, great people, super successful, and they lived on this property that was like unbelievable. It was like 40 acres with a giant lake in the middle, like a lake that they built with a beach and like a waterfall coming down from their deck into the lake. It was like incredible. And they were lucky enough that they were semi-retired and they just spent all day long maintaining their property. They would wake up in the morning, hop on the tractor and be like fixing the beach cuz it part of it caved in and chopping down trees and fixing the garden and doing all this stuff. And for them that was super enjoyable. But I looked at that and I was like, man, I don't want to be tied to having to maintain a thing all
Right.
for all of my time. I would
Yep.
at least, and maybe I'll get to a point where I want to do that. Maybe when I'm retired, like that will be something I would enjoy. But right now, I don't want to be maintaining stuff all the time. I've got enough to deal with the 2,000 square foot house I'm in.
Yeah. For
So
me,
yeah.
like what you said, for me this because we've both lived in Korea, for me the safety valve is always just knowing that if I mess everything up, I can move to Korea. We live on 30 grand a year and it like we're totally fine. We drive our $11,000 Kia Ray and live in our 2 bedroom, 1 bath apartment and it's fine. Like to nobody because you and I have both lived that lifestyle and I would say our happiness over there may have been even higher just due to different factors. I mean, we used to go out to eat way more in Korea because it's $9 a
Yeah.
person. I think back to when I was most
Mm-hmm.
like when I've been most fulfilled was a season in high school where I was commuting to a grocery store. So I go to school during the day and then in the evenings I'd go to a grocery store. I'd work in the produce department. I'd stack apples. I'd rotate the lettuce, the salad packages or whatever. I'd mop the floor. And it was just a really fulfilling time. And I was barely making any money. Of course, I had no expenses because I was living with
Mm-hmm.
my parents. But I think for you and I, that's like a moving back to Korea, living simple lifestyles, like a mental safety net. And I guess for the listeners, I
Mm-hmm.
guess we would encourage you to find your own like mental safety net where you just know that if things got really bad, like literally the worst your life is going to get is, you move in with your parents, you're in one bedroom for a while, your ego takes a hit, you're still going to get 3 meals a day, you're not going to get rained on, you're not going to be homeless.
Mhm.
It's like really not, the worst case scenario is really not that bad.
Yeah. And I have to remind myself of that constantly. I am I always have a very difficult time knowing that everything's going to be fine. I do have things I can fall back on. I can always go back to Korea. But I think I think there is something unique about the American culture that just promotes this sort of treadmill lifestyle of
Yeah.
more. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of America as much as possible to just reset my mindset on that. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't gone to a much lower cost of lifestyle place to do, because there's just as many fulfilled people living in what we would consider really terrible situations, and like they're doing fine.
Yep. Yeah. I would agree. I've been to every continent except Australia, and I've lived with missionaries, like living on $1,500 a month in rural China or
Mm-hmm.
middle of nowhere Africa, South America, and they have similar stresses to what we have, but they're not any happier or more sad. Just knowing that like you could lose everything, you'd be bummed for a few months, and then your happiness would hit baseline again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've even seen it. I would even make the argument. What do you think about passing on inheritance to kids, right? The Bible talks about how
Yeah.
a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his grandkids. But I've seen, and maybe you've seen, where the next generation either inherits a business, which is ideal, or just inherits a chunk of money, and it's gone in that next generation. And they didn't, because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have to work for it. They didn't
I've
have
seen it.
the fulfillment. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
seen it.
It's in my own family. Yeah. Yeah, I've totally seen it. And I don't know how I feel about having my oldest is 7, and the thought of giving him a bunch of cash right now seems crazy. But I don't know. Maybe I'll change my tune when he gets older. But yeah, I don't really want to do that. I don't think it's healthy.
Do
Maybe
you
there's
think
some
there's a
number that I put on it, but
Seth and I have talked about this in one of my other episodes, and we talk about how there's actually different expectations for sons and daughters. And it's interesting, you mentioned how the thought of giving an inheritance to your son feels ick. Hey, that kid should work for it feeling. And I made the case that the expectations for sons and daughters are different. And Shaq even talks about
okay.
how so Shaq has 6 kids. I think he has 3 sons and 3 daughters.
Shaq the
And
okay, that
yeah, the
basketball.
basketball. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was saying that when his sons turn 18, he tells them, son, you out. Like he kicks him out of the house. Hey, go figure it out. Figure out how to make
Yeah.
money and be a man. And to his daughters, he
Yeah.
says, baby, you stay as long as you want. And I'm in alignment with him. And I want to hear what you think, because you have a son and a daughter, where I really believe there are
Uh-huh.
different expectations. And it's not that I have lower expectations for daughters, but they are different.
Mm-hmm.
And like the thought of me passing an inheritance to my daughters
Yeah.
feels good. But I feel like if I had a son, that
Mm-hmm.
boy ain't getting nothing until I die. Like I don't think that I would, like he needs to figure out himself. And like even if let's say my daughter's married a man, like I'm not gonna pass down any money to them until it's very clear he's independent. I don't want him leeching off of his father-in-law's money. You know what I mean?
I think,
So I
yeah,
don't know. Do
I
you feel like
think
there's a difference?
that's, I think I'm in the same boat. I wouldn't want to give my daughter an inheritance until I saw that they were standing on their own 2 feet.
And making wise
And maybe at
decisions.
that point, yeah, making wise decisions, demonstrating a understanding of money and like having done it on their own. And then it's okay, yeah, like I'm comfortable now giving you money because I know you're going to steward it well. But I think that goes probably for my son and my daughter. I would want to see them demonstrate maturity before there was any transaction. And certainly I wouldn't want there to be some expectation that they're going to be given something at some point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And so your wife is Korean, you're white. My wife is Asian American and I'm white. And so I don't know about you, but I'm constantly comparing these two cultures. And at least
For sure.
at least for the white culture, at least what I grew up with, there's this culture of, hey, like you make it on your own. There's no help, no financial help,
Mm-hmm.
and if your parents die with some money, great. If not, there's no expectation. But I feel like in the Asian culture, at least what I've been exposed to through my experience, it's not binary like that. It's you can access that inheritance if there is one. You can access that family wealth anytime you want. You can dip in and out, and but it goes the reverse, where if they're in a cash crunch, they don't feel any kind of awkwardness asking you. Have
Asking you
you
for help. Yeah.
experienced?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and my parents would never. My parents are did the whole Dave Ramsey thing. They're very stable now, so they haven't ever needed money from me. But if they did need money, they would never ask unless like things got really bad. Versus, I feel like on the Asian side, the ask for money is like the first option you seek instead of the last. Is that what you've experienced? And if so, what pros and cons do you see there?
Yeah, man, it's so funny that you bring this up because I've watched the same dynamic play out, not just with parents, but with like general family. When I think in America, there's very much like a your life is your life, and I'm going to be at arm's length. And like when my kids were born, the it wasn't like they were like my parents were very much there. They were congratulatory, like all the things that you would expect from America, from an American family. Like we had some clothes and some, I don't know if they bought, I don't know, they bought us a few things for the baby, but that was sort of it. And on the Korean side, like my wife's uncle just handed us $500 and came to the hospital and made sure that we had like food and bought us groceries, and there was a very much like a a clear like I'm here beyond just
Right.
in and out. And same with parents and everything else. There's much more of a devotion in that sense. And I've seen the same dynamic of some of our friends who have wealthier parents, that it is absolutely normal for a parent to gift their kid a house, like an apartment. They get married or they
Hmm.
have a kid, and like the parents will just,
Oh, you mean in the Asian
if they
culture?
have money, they'll, yeah, like in Korea,
Yeah.
many of our
Yeah.
friends lived in houses that were given to them
Gifted.
by
Yeah.
family, or gifted, or their parents downsized into a smaller apartment and left the big apartment
Yeah.
to the kid. And this was like a common thing, and there was not really there wasn't a stigma against that, where I think in America it's like oh, your parents gave you this, so like you're not really doing it on your own.
Right.
I
You didn't earn it.
I Yeah, you didn't earn it thing. I like where I stand on this is I think just giving straight cash to kids is not a good thing. I want to see them earn it, like I mentioned earlier. But for those like major life things, whether
Like a
it's getting
house.
married or yeah, or needing to buy a house, like I could see at certain times stepping in and helping out in some way, or have a kid, buy them a new car or something like that sort of gift, like physical thing gift that's like very large, and but it goes beyond just the thing, the transfer of wealth or need. I want there to be like that, like I'm like we're here to help you get through this in a more,
Yeah.
a more involved way than maybe the normal American parent would. But it's tough. It's a very interesting cultural dynamic there.
Have you noticed, at least this is how it is in our family dynamics, where the white side of the family, words of affirmation is the primary love language.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the Asian
Yeah.
side, the primary love language is actually acts of service. So, like, my parents will say that they
Yeah.
love me and how proud they're proud of me. And then on the Asian
Yeah.
side, we got back from the airport. So we were gone for 2.5 months overseas. We get back into LA and there's no, oh, we missed you. We love you. There's no hugs. Hey, I filled your gas tank and I washed your car. And
Uh-huh.
that's the how to express love. Have you noticed that
Yeah.
those differences, and like how do you navigate? Because I find I'm always trying to love my wife with love languages that I feel are the best, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to fix that, but it's taken me years. What does it look like for you guys?
Oh man, I feel like we're mirror images. I'm the same way. For my wife, gifting is her love language, and I think that comes a lot from the culture. That, like I was saying, her uncle, when we go see him, he will never give a word of affirmation. There will never be
Right.
like a, hey, you're doing a great job. Look at your great kids. Congratulations on the whatever. There's none of that.
Yeah.
But at some point in the night, he will pull my wife aside and hand her an envelope full of money. And
Oh,
that's his way of saying like his affection. And yeah, and I and my wife
a red
really,
envelope,
really
right?
appreciates that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, yeah. My wife really, yeah, she really appreciates that, and she does that for others as well, like giving them something physical. And yeah, it's tough for me because I don't get satisfaction of receiving gifts. I'm
Yeah.
appreciative, but I don't have that
Right.
same sort of feeling. But my wife does, and so I have to really try to make that a part of my relationship to be fulfilling in that
For
way.
you guys, do apologies work the same? Because I find that like what was modeled for me as a child is after you have conflict,
Mm-hmm.
you come back, you say that you're sorry, you say it's like some sort of action plan on how we're gonna have this conflict again, and there's a reconciliation process. And then after the conversation's done, you're good. And with Asian culture, at least again, I only have a sample size of one. So my window to, I'm not trying to summarize all Asian Americans, but for me, my window is very narrow. But for my wife and I, we have conflict, and I want to sit down in chairs. We face each other, and we have this process
And
of
talk.
describing our feelings and talking about what you said hurt me and all these things. And for her, that's just not, that's, I've never been able to get her to do that. The way that she apologizes or at least reconciles is she makes me food. And then I know it's over and we move on. And she's very good about not bringing up the past. Like she doesn't bring up stuff that happened a year ago, and her brain it's just gone from her brain. Have you noticed similar between you and your wife?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. There's very much like that. My wife wants nothing more than, if there's conflict, than to get flowers or get receive something from like a gift. But talking about it is not going to happen in the same way that I would do things. But yeah.
So how does it work? I want to talk about this last topic and then we'll wrap it up. Tying in marriage and business, because your wife, correct me if I'm wrong, your wife is stay-at-home mom, correct?
No, she works as a musician, so she's a full-time, not full-time, but she
Okay.
plays piano professionally.
Okay. I think you told me that before. But how does the conversation work? Like how do you guys talk about money? Because my wife, she's worked before in the past. She's highly qualified. She's got 3 college degrees. She's clearly demonstrated that she has the capability to be very successful in a professional role. But in this exact moment, during this season, she's a stay-at-home mom. And I'm curious between you and your wife, how does money work between you two? Is she, like with my wife, she just has this blind faith that I'm going to continue to make more money, which she's probably right. But to me, that scares the living daylights out of me because I know that, yes, a lot of it's the Lord's will, but also a lot of it's just me, like me being productive and me actually doing the work. Actually need to roll up my sleeves. I need to lace up my boots. I need to go out and I need to plow the fields. Nobody's going to plow them for me. Of course, God brings the rain and makes those seeds grow, but I'm the one who needs to actually do a lot of the hard work. And my wife, she just has this belief that our trajectory is on autopilot and it's constantly upward and to the right. And it sometimes is very comforting knowing that she has so much belief in my abilities or maybe God's abilities. Other times it scares the living daylights out of me because I feel like she's not planted in what reality is. Are you guys similar or different? How does that conversation about money and future money, how does that work?
It's funny, when I was 25, I had just moved to Cincinnati. We had met at school in Wisconsin, then she went to grad school, and I followed her down there a year later when I graduated. And so we weren't married, we were just dating. And I went to Financial Peace, Dave Ramsey's class, and it was like a totally eye-opening moment for me. It was like one of those light bulb moments where you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the way." And I was like, I came running home basically after this class, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're so young,
Right.
and we're gonna set up a budget, and we're gonna start saving, and we're gonna be multimillionaires, and it's gonna be amazing." And I remember sharing this with her, and she said, "What do you mean a budget? Like, I am too old to be dealing with budgets. I am too old. Like, budgets are for 19-year-olds who don't have any money. We have money now. Why would we need a budget?" It was like she was like offended that I would bring up this idea of having a budget and we wouldn't just spend freely because we were making money. And that's when I realized like this is going to be
Yeah.
a long process. Now, to her credit, she has grown a lot. She's learned that I feel this is important. So she's definitely acquiesced in a few areas there, and she does believe in the budget. So we do follow that. But I do remember that being like shocking to me when She's like, what are you talking about? A budget?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's I she's definitely the like I am more the saver and the planner in terms of money, and I'm the I'm making most of it, so my finger is constantly on the pulse of what's coming in and what's going out, and she's not. And so there are definitely times where I have to bring up the fact that we spent way too much money on furniture and we need to like
Yeah.
wait until my next dividend check comes in before we do any more.
That was the first big fight we got into, like in the first year of our marriage, was over a budget. Actually, we may have gotten engaged. Maybe we were engaged
Okay.
at the time. I just remember it was the first big conflict was me
Uh-huh.
trying to establish controls and boundaries in the money sphere, and
Uh-huh.
sh- very similar response. And now, and I remember thinking like, am I marrying a crazy person? This is insane. I like everyone should think like Dave Ramsey. And in her brain, and I actually now agree with this more, like I'm more on her side of the spectrum. Her brain is like, why would you focus on spending less when you could just focus on making more? Because she grew up in a family of
Mm.
entrepreneurs. She's never seen, like I grew up with employees as my parents, and so our income is very fixed. And so the only way to have more money at the end of the year is to spend less. Versus as an
Spend
entrepreneur,
less. Yep.
I think
Yep.
Jesse, or I think Kevin, for you, it's actually a little different because you guys are not only are you in a partnership, but you're also in a subscription based software program where you actually a budget for you guys does make sense. But for someone like me, where I can do more deals and increase my income, why would I spend a large chunk of my brain trying to decrease my expenses when I can just apply that same mental effort to just increasing the top line? That's at least the logic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not careful, that could
Mm-hmm.
come to bite you because you just can just spend wildly and you're not making what you spend. But it's interesting how money,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't what is it? Money, sex, and discipline, child discipline, the three top areas couples fight over.
Those are
So it's
the three.
yeah,
Yep.
very interesting stuff. Kevin, I always appreciate talking with you because you're very transparent, you're very humble, and you're very brilliant. You're very brilliant in multiple ways, both on the personal side, also on the business side. I've got to spend time with you in multiple countries, multiple parts of the country. I'm looking forward to seeing you next at whatever event we have coming up. Is there any kind of plug you'd like to make? Any promotion you're doing? Anything you'd like the listeners to watch out for, or any way they can find you online?
Yeah, I'm not too much of a social media person, but I am out there on the various things. LinkedIn is probably the one you'll find me on the most, but my company, pebblerei.com, is where I am. Our YouTube channel, I'm usually there at least once a month, usually more. Yeah, if you're interested in land investing, come check out Pebble. Um, yeah, but Drew, thank you. Thank you for the words of affirmation as a fellow American.
Fellow
I'll have to
Caucasian.
give you yeah, I'll have to give
Actually,
you a
we're
word
both
of advice
Midwest.
next time we meet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're both like middle class, Midwest. Yeah, because I'm from Chicago. Are you from
Nice.
Milwaukee?
My I'm I grew up
Oh,
I was born
Ohio.
in California, but
Okay. Yeah,
it
so we're
was
from very similar
when I grew up.
cultures. Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty, sir. Appreciate you. And until next time.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. That's it for today. I hope this conversation got you thinking and maybe even questioning a few things. And that's the point. This isn't about having all the answers, it's about figuring it out together. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, make sure to subscribe and follow me over at theothersideofenough.com. Let's keep the conversation going and see you next time.